Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the modern era, saw neurosis not as a mere disorder, but as a message, a signal from the unconscious that something in our life is out of balance. Unlike traditional approaches that focus on childhood traumas or past wounds, Jung believed that the key to healing lies in understanding what our suffering is trying to tell us. He once said, "The road to recovery does not require reliving childhood memories or working through old family conflicts." This challenges the common belief that digging into the past is the only way to heal. Instead, Jung suggested that neurosis is not simply the result of unresolved pain. It is a wake-up call, a sign that we are living in conflict with our true nature. The core idea is this: neurosis is not an enemy to be eliminated, but a guide to be understood. It arises when we are disconnected from ourselves, when we suppress our real desires, or when we live according to external expectations rather than our own inner truth. If we keep ignoring it, the symptoms, anxiety, depression, inner restlessness, only grow louder. The path to healing, then, is not about getting lost in the past, but about making conscious choices in the present. It is about changing the way we live, think, and act right now, so we can align with who we are meant to be. Neurosis is not an accident. It does not simply appear out of nowhere, nor is it some mysterious ailment that strikes at random. Carl Jung believed that neurosis is a direct result of the way we are currently living. It is not necessarily rooted in childhood traumas, unless those traumas remain unresolved in our unconscious, but rather in the ongoing conflict between our true self and the life we are forcing ourselves to live. Think of neurosis as an inner alarm system. Just as physical pain warns us when something is wrong in our body, neurosis is a psychological signal that something is wrong with our way of being. It is a message from the unconscious mind, telling us that we are moving in a direction that does not support our well-being. If ignored, it intensifies, manifesting as anxiety, depression, irrational fears, or compulsive behaviors. But if we learn to understand it, we can use it as a tool for self-discovery. Jung observed that neurotic struggles often arise when a person fails to live authentically, when they suppress their real thoughts, desires, and emotions in order to conform to external expectations. Society, family, cultural norms, and even personal fears often dictate how we should behave, what we should desire, and what kind of life we should pursue. When these external demands contradict our true nature, an internal battle begins. The more we ignore this battle, the more neurosis grows, because the mind cannot indefinitely sustain a life that contradicts its deeper truths. For example, a person may spend years in a career that brings them no joy, but they stay because it is what they were told is right or secure. Over time, they begin to feel drained, anxious, and even physically ill, without realizing that their suffering is not due to external pressures alone. It is the result of denying their inner calling. Another person may force themselves to remain in a relationship where they feel unseen and unfulfilled, believing that commitment and sacrifice are more important than their personal truth. Slowly, they develop an underlying sadness or constant state of tension, but instead of questioning their choices, they assume something is wrong with them. They may seek therapy, medication, or external solutions, but if they do not confront the real source of their distress, the misalignment between their inner truth and their outer life, the neurosis will persist. Jung did not see neurosis as a disease in need of eradication. Instead, he saw it as an invitation to change, to evolve, to step into a more authentic existence. When neurosis arises, it is not punishing us, it is guiding us. It is showing us that the path we are on is no longer serving our growth, and that we must make a shift. Whether that shift is in our career, relationships, beliefs, or lifestyle, the answer is rarely found in simply revisiting old wounds. The answer is in our present choices. Thus, the cure for neurosis is not just understanding the past, but transforming the present. It is about recognizing where we are out of alignment, where we have ignored our inner truth, and where we need to reclaim our authentic self. The more we listen to the message hidden within our struggles, the more we can step into a life that is truly our own, one that is free, fulfilling, and deeply connected to who we are meant to be. The first step toward recovery: developing self-awareness. The path to healing does not begin with external solutions. It begins with self-awareness. Before we can make any real change in our lives, we must develop a clear and honest understanding of who we are, what we truly want, and where we are heading. Without this awareness, we risk living in denial, making choices based on illusion rather than truth, and repeating patterns that keep us stuck in suffering. Many people avoid looking inward because they fear what they might find. They convince themselves that their struggles are entirely caused by external circumstances, bad luck, difficult people, or unfortunate events. While external challenges do exist, blaming them without examining our own role in our experiences only prolongs suffering. Jung believed that true healing begins when we take responsibility for our inner world rather than focusing solely on outside factors. He famously said, "While many people fear what they may see if they take an honest look at themselves, in actual fact, the practice of self-acceptance is liberating." Self-acceptance does not mean complacency. It means acknowledging both our strengths and our weaknesses without shame or resistance. Many of us live under the illusion that we must be perfect, flawless, or constantly improving in order to be worthy. But this mindset creates endless inner conflict. When we embrace who we are, imperfections, and all, we stop wasting energy on self-rejection and redirect that energy toward growth and transformation. Seeking external feedback, seeing ourselves clearly. While introspection is essential, Jung also recognized that we are often blind to certain aspects of ourselves. We have unconscious biases, defense mechanisms, and patterns that can be difficult to recognize from within. This is why seeking honest feedback from a trusted person can be incredibly valuable. Jung suggested that speaking with someone who knows us well and has no hidden agenda, a mentor, a close friend, a spiritual guide, or even a therapist, can offer insights we might otherwise miss. They can help us see where we are deceiving ourselves, where we might be making excuses, or where our fears are holding us back. However, the key is to approach this feedback with an open mind and a willingness to reflect, rather than becoming defensive. For example, imagine someone who constantly struggles in relationships, always feeling abandoned or unappreciated. They may believe that they are simply unlucky in love. But a trusted friend might gently point out a recurring pattern. Perhaps they choose partners who are emotionally unavailable, or they unknowingly push people away out of fear of vulnerability. This kind of external perspective can be a turning point in self-awareness. By combining honest self-reflection with external feedback, we begin to see ourselves more clearly. We start to recognize our unconscious habits, the beliefs that keep us stuck, and the ways in which we contribute to our own suffering. This is not about blame. It is about empowerment. When we know ourselves fully, we gain the power to make different choices, to heal, and to step into a life that aligns with our true nature. Thus, the first step toward recovery is not about fixing ourselves. It is about understanding ourselves. Only when we see clearly can we begin to move forward with purpose and authenticity. The danger of avoidance, the illusion of safety. For many, avoidance feels like the easiest solution. When faced with discomfort, fear, or emotional pain, the instinct to retreat, to numb ourselves, distract ourselves, or simply pretend the problem doesn't exist, offers immediate relief. We tell ourselves, if I don't think about it, it will go away. If I avoid the trigger, I won't have to deal with the pain. And for a time, it seems to work. The discomfort fades, the anxiety quiets down, and life feels manageable again. But avoidance is deceptive. It gives the illusion of control while silently shrinking our world. What starts as small, manageable decisions, avoiding a difficult conversation, procrastinating on change, or distracting ourselves from uncomfortable emotions, slowly snowballs into restriction. The more we avoid, the smaller our life becomes. We start limiting where we go, who we engage with, and what experiences we allow ourselves to have, all to maintain the fragile illusion of peace. Over time, what once felt like protection turns into a cage. This is where the distinction between symptom management and true recovery becomes critical. Many believe that as long as they can manage their emotions by avoiding triggers, staying in familiar patterns, or suppressing discomfort, they are healing. But Jung teaches us that true transformation does not come from avoidance. It comes from integration. It is not about running away from pain, but understanding what that pain is trying to teach us. A harsh reality check, the raging bull. Jung compared the process of recovery to climbing a steep mountain pass. It is challenging, exhausting, and at times overwhelming. Many choose to avoid the climb altogether, settling in what seems like a pleasant valley, where things feel stable and comfortable. But what they don't see is the raging bull coming toward them from behind. The pleasant valley represents avoidance, the illusion of peace that comes from denying or ignoring our struggles. The raging bull symbolizes the unresolved issues that are catching up with us, whether we acknowledge them or not. We may think we are safe by staying where we are, but in reality, every unaddressed problem, every buried emotion, and every avoided truth continues to build momentum, growing more powerful the longer we refuse to face it. This is why avoidance, while tempting, is far more painful in the long run than confrontation. The difficult conversation we avoid today turns into years of resentment. The fears we suppress manifest as chronic anxiety or unexplained dissatisfaction. The change we refuse to make leaves us stuck in a life that no longer fulfills us. We may believe we are sparing ourselves suffering, but in truth, we are only delaying the inevitable reckoning. Jung's wisdom reminds us that growth requires courage. Avoidance may seem like protection, but it is merely postponement. If we wish to truly heal, we must stop running, turn around, and face the truth, because once we do, we realize that the mountain ahead of us is far less terrifying than the bull behind us. Neurosis, at first glance, appears to be nothing more than suffering. It manifests as anxiety, confusion, emotional distress, and an overwhelming sense that something is wrong. It can feel like a curse, an affliction that keeps us stuck, restless, and disconnected from peace. But Carl Jung offers us a different perspective. Neurosis is not just suffering. It is an opportunity for transformation. Suffering itself is not the enemy. It is the resistance to suffering that creates prolonged pain. When we view neurosis as a meaningless affliction, we remain trapped in it, feeling powerless and lost. However, when we recognize it as a signal, a message from the unconscious that something within us needs to change, it becomes a gateway to profound self-discovery and growth. In this sense, neurosis is a paradox. If we remain caught in its grip, it feels like a curse. But if we face it, understand it, and transcend it, it becomes a blessing. Jung observed that those who successfully navigate neurosis often emerge with greater psychological strength, wisdom, and resilience than those who never struggled. Why? Because facing neurosis forces us to confront our inner conflicts, question false identities, and break free from self-imposed limitations. It pushes us to shed the inauthentic parts of ourselves and step into a more conscious and fulfilling existence. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It experiences darkness, pressure, and resistance before it can break open and grow. Neurosis is like that darkness. It feels suffocating, but it is also the beginning of transformation. It signals that our current way of living is no longer sustainable and urges us to evolve into something greater. The key is not to suppress or run from it, but to listen to what it is trying to teach us. The hidden gift of struggle, a message of hope. Many of the most enlightened, wise, and self-aware individuals did not reach that state by living easy, conflict-free lives. They struggled, questioned, suffered, and through that suffering, they transformed. This is why Jung saw neurosis not as a failure, but as an initiation. It is a call to awaken, to reclaim lost parts of ourselves, and to forge a deeper connection with our true nature. If you are experiencing neurosis, know this: your suffering is not meaningless. It is not a punishment. It is a catalyst for profound change. It is urging you to examine your life, to seek alignment, and to move beyond the limitations that have kept you trapped. You are being called to evolve, to awaken to a greater sense of self-awareness and inner peace. Neurosis, when embraced with courage, becomes a guide. It forces us to grow, to see beyond illusions, and to recognize that our pain is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of something greater. The question is not, how do I get rid of this suffering? But rather, what is this suffering trying to show me? Once we shift our mindset in this way, we no longer see neurosis as a curse. We see it as the doorway to our most authentic, awakened, and liberated self. Carl Jung emphasized that healing is not just about understanding our inner conflicts. It is about taking action. Awareness without action keeps us stuck in a passive state, endlessly analyzing our suffering but never moving beyond it. The neurotic person often asks, "What should I do?" They seek a formula, a clear roadmap, or a prescribed solution. But Jung warns that there is no universal answer. What works for one person may not work for another, because healing is an individual journey. However, he did provide guiding principles that help us navigate this transformation. 1. Beware of blind conformity. Many people suffer not because they are inherently broken, but because they sense the inadequacies of societal norms. Society often dictates rigid paths, what success should look like, how relationships should function, what goals are worth pursuing. But blindly following these external expectations can deepen our suffering rather than alleviate it. Some people experience neurosis because they force themselves into lives that do not reflect who they truly are. For example, imagine a person who has always felt called to a creative life, writing, painting, or music, but instead, they follow a conventional career path because it is practical and socially acceptable. Over time, they feel unfulfilled, disconnected, and restless, but they dismiss these feelings as irrational. They assume something is wrong with them, when in reality, their suffering is a sign that they are living against their own nature. The more we deny what our soul longs for, the more neurosis tightens its grip. True healing requires the courage to step away from paths that are not truly ours. 2. Face life's fundamental tasks. Another source of neurosis is avoidance of life's essential responsibilities. Some people suffer not because they are on the wrong path, but because they refuse to engage with life at all. Jung saw neurosis as a form of resistance, a refusal to step fully into the responsibilities of adulthood, relationships, work, or even the reality of mortality. When we avoid engaging with these aspects of life, our unconscious protests, creating the symptoms of neurosis. For instance, some individuals avoid deep relationships out of fear of vulnerability. They remain distant, detached, or push others away because intimacy feels too risky. Others may resist meaningful work, staying in unfulfilling jobs, or refusing to commit to their own aspirations. Neurosis is often the mind's way of expressing that we are refusing to fully participate in life. The only way out is through, by actively engaging with the very things we fear, rather than retreating from them. 3. The path forward, asking the right question. If we feel lost, Jung suggests we ask ourselves a powerful question. If I were free from my neurosis and the fear of social judgment, what would I do? This question removes external pressures and forces us to consider what truly resonates with our soul. If there were no fear, no guilt, no limitations imposed by others, what choices would we make? What path would we take? Our dreams, fantasies, and unfulfilled desires may hold clues to what is missing in our lives. The mind often suppresses what it fears it cannot attain, but those suppressed longings may be precisely what we need to explore. Perhaps we have long dreamed of traveling, but always dismissed it as impractical. Perhaps we have felt the pull toward a certain career, lifestyle, or spiritual path, but ignored it for the sake of security. Neurosis thrives in stagnation, but the moment we begin to move, to take risks, to step into the unknown, we start to break free. Healing through action. The key to overcoming neurosis is not found in passivity, nor in waiting for the perfect answer to appear. It is found in movement. Even small steps toward authenticity can create profound change. The goal is not perfection, but progress. Not to rid ourselves of all fear, but to refuse to let fear dictate our lives. Jung believed that by engaging fully with life, by taking responsibility for our choices, and by aligning with our deeper truth, we transform neurosis from suffering into personal evolution. The real question is, are we willing to take that first step? The challenge of recovery, walking through fear. Taking action is not the end of the journey. It is only the beginning. When we finally step forward, breaking free from old patterns and confronting what we have long avoided, we may expect immediate relief. However, what often happens instead is that our symptoms intensify. The anxiety grows stronger, self-doubt becomes louder, and fear grips us tighter. This is where many falter. They assume that because the discomfort has worsened, they must be doing something wrong. But Jung warns us, this is not failure. It is part of the process. One of the greatest misconceptions about healing is the belief that we must first eliminate our fear, anxiety, or insecurity before we can take action. Many people delay their growth, waiting for the moment when they will finally feel ready, when their minds will be clear and their emotions calm. But that moment never comes. The truth is, healing does not happen before action. It happens through action. Jung understood this deeply. He did not offer an easy path or a magical solution to overcoming neurosis. Instead, he taught that growth requires walking forward despite the fear. If we wait for fear to disappear before we act, we will remain trapped forever. Fear is not meant to vanish. It is meant to be carried with us as we move forward. The real transformation happens when we stop letting fear decide our fate. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast forest, knowing that beyond the trees lies a new life, one of greater fulfillment and authenticity. You hesitate because the path is unfamiliar and the woods seem dark. You can either turn back, returning to what is familiar but unfulfilling, or you can take that first step forward, accepting that fear will walk beside you. This is the essence of recovery, not eliminating discomfort, but choosing to move through it anyway. Many who embark on this journey find that the most difficult part is the beginning. The mind resists change, clinging to old ways out of habit and fear. The familiar, even if painful, feels safer than the unknown. But as we persist, choosing growth over comfort, courage over avoidance, something begins to shift. The fear that once seemed unbearable loses its grip. The anxiety that once controlled us begins to fade, not because we forced it away, but because we no longer let it define our choices. Jung reminds us, a man who stands at the threshold of the unconscious must dare to leap. There is no easy way, no shortcut, no secret formula. There is only the choice to step into life, fear and all. The path is uncertain, the journey challenging, but with each step, we reclaim our freedom. This is what it means to heal, not to erase fear, but to no longer be ruled by it. Neurosis is not a life sentence. It is a signpost, a message from deep within, urging us to change course. It is not a punishment, nor is it a permanent condition. It is a call to awareness, an invitation to step out of the patterns that keep us trapped and into a more conscious, authentic, and fulfilling life. The mistake many make is believing that healing requires endlessly digging through the past, reliving old wounds, or waiting for the perfect moment when fear disappears. But Jung teaches us otherwise. The road to healing is not about the past. It is about what we choose to do now. Neurosis arises when we ignore our inner truth, when we suppress our real desires, or when we live in ways that contradict our deeper nature. The way forward is not found in avoidance or passive waiting. It is found in action, in courage, in the willingness to step into discomfort and claim our own path. The journey is not easy. Growth never is. But the steepest roads lead to the most breathtaking views. Every step we take towards self-awareness, every act of courage in the face of fear, brings us closer to a life that is truly our own. We do not need to be perfect. We do not need to have it all figured out. We simply need to begin. Jung reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The choice is ours, to remain in the cycle of suffering or to wake up, to listen, and to transform. The path is before us. All that remains is the decision to walk it.